Always exciting taking a trip, isn't it? Adventuring to a brand new place, trying some new food, seeing some new sights, not being at work. You never want to come back. Well, visit one of the places on this list and you may not, whether you like it or not. I'm your host, James, and these are the top 10 scary places tourists never returned from. And we're starting off the list with the Bennington Triangle. The Bennington Triangle is a chunk of Vermont that swallowed up its fair share of people. This area, stretching from Glatsonbury Mountain to Bennington, seems to be a hotspot for weird stuff. There have been some downright eerie disappearances here. Cases where people have just vanished without a trace. The first one was in 1945. A woman named Paula Weldon went for a hike and never came back. Now, it's not unheard of for people to go missing on hikes, but she was with a sizable group and seemed to be there 1 second and gone the next. No sign, no explanation, no body ever found. Then in 1946, a college student named James Tetford boarded a bus but never got off. His luggage was still there, but him? Nowhere to be seen. According to everyone else on board, he'd been sleeping in his seat, but when the bus arrived at its destination in Bennington, he was just gone. A few years later, in 1950, Paul Jepson went hunting, never came back, and it doesn't stop there. Freda Langer, in 51, took a stroll, and you can probably guess the rest. This is just the tip of the iceberg, so it's no surprise that the woods have become known for being cursed, haunted, or just plain evil. Some even say there could be a portal to another dimension somewhere in the triangle. Number 9, we have Yosemite National Park. This park in California has become a pretty popular setting for creepy stories and urban legends. And the reason for that seems to be that some genuinely mysterious stuff has gone on here. Take the case of Stacey Arris in 1981. She vanished without a trace during a backpacking trip, leaving behind only her scattered belongings. No conclusive evidence was ever found. Another incident involved the disappearance of George W. Anderson in 1927. He was an experienced hiker, but he too vanished without a trace. Some claim there's an eerie pattern to these disappearances, as if the park itself seems to swallow people up. The park's rugged terrain and vast wilderness also make search and rescue operations a bit of a challenge. Some speculate that these vanishings could be attributed to natural dangers like steep cliffs and unpredictable weather. Others, though, insist there's something more mysterious lurking in the shadows. Next up, we have Hoia-Baciu Forest in Transylvania. If there's any place on Earth where you're gonna find a genuine haunted forest, it's probably in Transylvania. This forest is said to be the most haunted one in the entire world, and locals often refer to it as the Bermuda Triangle of Transylvania. One of the most famous legends involves a shepherd who, along with his flock of 200 sheep, disappeared without a trace in the forest with no reasonable explanation ever being found. The clearing, a circular area within the forest, is said to be a hotbed for paranormal phenomena. Visitors have reported unexplained rashes, nausea, and feeling anxiety when entering this mysterious zone where vegetation just doesn't seem to grow. Photographs taken in the forest sometimes reveal strange shapes and unexplained orbs of light. Another famous story associated with this forest is that of a young girl who went missing while in the forest. People searched for her tirelessly, but there were just no signs of her, and eventually it started to look like she was never going to be found. 5 years went by, and then, miraculously, out of nowhere, the girl showed up again, as if she'd just gone missing the day before. She was still wearing the same clothes she had on 5 years before, and hadn't looked like she'd aged a day. She wasn't even distressed. This story is part of why some speculate that there could be some sort of portal in the forest to another dimension or a parallel universe. At number 7, we have Great Smoky Mountains National Park, which sits on the border between North Carolina and Tennessee. One of the most well-known phenomena in the area is known as the Brown Mountain Lights, mysterious illuminations that appear along Brown Mountain. Some insist that these lights are ghostly apparitions or signs of extraterrestrial activity. The lights have never been definitively explained. There's also a ghost town called Elkmont within the park. One time, it was a vibrant community, but in 1934 the land was purchased to establish the park, and after the residents of these cottages and homes died off, they were just left standing. Some visitors claim to have encountered the spirit of a young girl named Mandy in the Greenbrier section of the park. According to the legend, Mandy perished in a tragic accident, and her ghost is said to appear to those who venture into the area. Next on the list, we have the Matterhorn Incident. This was an incredibly disturbing accident that happened at Disneyland. So this ride is a roller coaster that winds its way through a mountain set modeled after the famous Matterhorn Mountain in the Alps. It looks like a pretty cool ride. You get to see all these cool looking stalactites. There's an animatronic Yeti. I love a good animatronic Yeti. Good, clean fun. But the ride will always be stained by a tragic incident involving 48-year-old Dolly Young back in 1984. The ride took off and everything seemed fine, but then Young was thrown from the ride. She flew out of one of the bobsled cars and struck an oncoming one. She was instantly decapitated. Once an investigation was carried out, it was discovered that her seatbelt had been unbuckled, but it wasn't clear if she'd unbuckled it herself or if it malfunctioned. The Omni Grove Park Inn. This inn, which stands in Asheville, North Carolina, has a charmingly historic vibe. But aside from how elegant and cozy the place looks, a ghostly presence known as the Pink Lady has become a part of its lore, with reports from both guests and staff spanning several years. The Pink Lady, once a guest herself, seems to have never checked out. Described as a pinkish smoky haze, she occasionally takes on the form of a young woman wearing a pink ball gown. The heart of the haunting centers around room 545, where she is said to linger. According to the tale, the Pink Lady met a tragic end, falling from the 5th floor balcony to the 3rd. As for how she fell, there are different versions of the story. Some claim she was thrown, while others say she took her own life. Unlike some ghosts, though, encounters with the Pink Lady are often kinda cute. Guests have reported playful stuff. They'll wake up to find their rooms rearranged, lights flickering on and off mysteriously, and some even waking in the middle of the night, feeling like someone or something is tickling their feet. Creepy, no doubt, but not the worst thing in the world. At number 4, we have the Paris Catacombs. The Paris Catacombs, stretching beneath the streets of the city, are a vast underground ossuary holding the remains of around 6 million people. Wonder why this place seems kinda scary. There are countless urban legends about the catacombs, a lot having to do with them being haunted by the spirits of the deceased. Some claim to have witnessed shadowy figures or felt an unseen presence while on tours. One infamous event happened at some time in the early 90s when a man who became known as the Lost Cataphile ventured into the underground labyrinth. His video footage captured his descent into the darkness, and as the footage plays out, he becomes increasingly disoriented and panicked. The video ends abruptly with the man dropping the camera and running deeper into the catacombs. The camera, along with the footage, was discovered sometime later, but the man behind it has never been found. Next up is the Langham Hotel. Built in 1865, this hotel has earned a reputation as one of England's most haunted hotels. Over the years, numerous guests have checked in, but according to various reports, some seem to have never left. One of the most prominent spirits said to haunt this hotel is a German prince who met a tragic end when he fell from an upper story window. Staff members have recounted sightings of his ghostly figure gliding through walls, often accompanied by a noticeable drop in temperature. Room 333 has been deemed the most haunted. One account involves a BBC newscaster who stayed in the room. He woke up to the sight of a ghostly figure in Victoria-era evening wear, hovering in midair. The apparition had no legs and started moving towards him with outstretched arms. In 2014, the Langham made headlines when several members of the English national cricket team abruptly left the hotel in the middle of the night, complaining about paranormal disturbances in their rooms. Players reported unexplained heat, taps turning on by themselves in the bathroom, and an overall sense of unease with this unseen presence lingering. Number 2, Casa Anime. Casa Anime, once an inn, has a dark history linked to a twisted family driven by violence and greed. This family targeted their wealthier guests, providing them supposedly luxurious rooms located away from the main road, but these accommodations became death traps. The family devised a gruesome scheme to profit off of them, not just by charging more for a better room, but by taking the lives of their well-to-do guests in their sleep. The method was horrifyingly simple: drop in large pieces of furniture onto the unsuspecting victims, crushing them. Following this, the family would rob the deceased before disposing of their bodies in a large hole on the premises, turning it into a grim mass grave. After World War II, a new family took over the inn, only to report unsettling experiences. They claimed to hear chilling sounds at night, echoes of massive objects crashing, and the clatter of crockery. To this day, Casa Anime is believed to be haunted by the tormented spirits of those who met their tragic end within its walls. And finally, we have Hotel Monte Vista in Flagstaff, Arizona. There are numerous reports of former guests here who seemingly never checked out, their spirits lingering within its walls. One eerie tale involves a pair of ghosts, two women who, according to local lore, were thrown from the third floor back in the day. They're said to spend their afterlife attempting to strangle male guests as they sleep. Room 220 has its own macabre history. A long-term guest in the early 80s had an unusual habit of hanging meat from the chandelier in his room. His life ended mysteriously, and since then, there have been reports of strange occurrences in the room. Staff members often steer clear of it, and guests have said the TV turns on by itself at full volume, and yes, the TV has apparently been replaced more than once. Some have even described feeling the touch of a cold, unseen hand. With all that said, I've been your host James, and I'll catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video.